All right, we're live. So, welcome to another Run Wild with Us. Ask Us Anything. I am Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild and RIZE Presses, and I am here with you on Thursdays between 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm typically here with some of our amazing editors, such as Ben, who has just joined us as well. And we're here to basically answer whatever questions you may have. Again, it can be about anything. Typically, it's around publishing, around our process, the craft of writing. It could be around marketing of books. It could be, I don't know, whatever you dang well feel like. Go ahead, ask us. And the best way to ask us is to go ahead and put your questions in the comments section of whatever venue you are watching us through. We are actually live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So, again, ask us anything you want. And with that, Holly Rose says, "Hey, folks. Hey, Holly.
Good
Fantastic
evening.
to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And until we actually get a couple questions, I want to say hey to Ben.
Hello, hi.
How are you doing? How was your week? Got anything kind of cool to share with us?
It was good. Nothing really cool. Wrapping up one novel and started another one. And Peter and I talked about a editing issue that might be of interest to writers.
Oh, cool.
The convention of having one space after a period or two spaces after a period
Mm.
or after punctuation.
Mm-hmm.
And the new norm, it used to be when we were on typewriters that the norm was two spaces, period, space, space, next sentence.
Yep.
But the more recent on the computer is period, space, next sentence. So just
Mm-hmm.
one space there. But I had I've got a novel now that was using the two space convention, which is not necessarily wrong. It's just it stands out now that you get used to one space.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's every line, which I'm hoping I can do a search and replace and make that go smoother. But it is the new convention of just the period space next line.
It's funny. I remember when a fellow author had come to me and said, "Are you aware of this new convention where it's a single space after every period?" And I was like, "That's BS. Where'd you hear about it?" She's like, "On the internet." I was like, "That's complete BS. I can't believe anyone would teach that, blah, blah, blah." Right. Of course, I went on my little rant. This was like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. So, and I remember, a poor thing, like I really let her have it, right? And then I went and looked it up and I asked around and it turned out that yeah, because Ben, to your point, right? This was a convention that was common back when we used typewriters. And when we moved to computers and really no one really uses typewriters anymore. Although I must admit I do kind of miss that sound, you know.
Of course.
Um but anyway, and that's when I discovered, oops, I was completely 100% incorrect. And it really does stand out. Now, what's really bizarre is that with the latest iterations of Word and, various email uh, delivery mechanisms, and with Google Drive's version of Word Doc, it likes to, like, I guess if you hit the space bar too hard, it automatically places a period. Did you notice that? Yeah. And so I have to go back and recheck my sentences because sometimes, like, it'll insert, random words or like periods. And I'm like, why in the heck is this here? This makes no sense. But that's an error, most likely with an AI that is, inserting things based on, in theory, whatever the algorithm is assessing as your norm. So, anyway, far too much information. I am completely sure.
The
Holly,
old correspondence manual in the Coast Guard had two spaces because it was out of date. even when it wasn't. It's
That's
probably
awesome.
written in 1940, but
That's all right. They're allowed to do that.
yeah.
Holly Rose says, "All right, I'll start. How many books do you historically put out in a year? How many are slated for this year and the next?" Wow. Okay, that is an amazing question. So typically we target to put out between 10 and 15 books per year. And there's a lot of dependencies on that, right? That typically, oh, and Holly Rose also asked, do they all have release dates? All right. So let me get all that out for those who are watching. So we target 10 to 15 books per year per imprint. So what that really means is 20 to 30 books per year in total, right? Because that's 10 to 15 for Running Wild, 10 to 15 for Rise. The slate for this year, for 2023, is already set. We have 18 books that are coming out in 2023. Now, what that's dependent on, it is dependent on the number of books that we are able to complete in terms of the actual manuscript revision and ensuring that it's ready to actually get into the hands of readers, ensuring that the cover design is done, the back jacket copy's done, the log line is done, everything is complete for us to actually submit to our manufacturers as well as to our distributor, because there are certain deadlines that we have to hit in order to ensure that we have the complete backing of the sales team that works for our distributor. Now, all of that said, and they all, for 2023, they all have dates. So that's the far too complete answer for 2023. For 2024, we currently have slated for Running Wild. Let me look at this. 15 books. And I would say about 6, 8 are either um, fully edited and ready to go, partially edited and almost ready to go. And then, so 8 out of those 15, so more than half already, and we're only in January, are um, in the final stages of being made available to our actual manufacturer and to the distributor. That's just for 2024. Now for Rise, we currently have slated also 15. Oh no, 17. I've lost my mind. We have slated like 17, and I believe right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to say 6, 7 actually. 7 out of the 15 are currently in the middle of being edited, are in the final stages of editing, or are are ready to go to the manufacturer. For 2020, now none of the, unless it's actually gone to the manufacturer, they don't have dates, right? So 2023, all of them have dates. 2024, again, unless they're complete, they don't have dates. 2025, Rise currently has 4 slated for 2025, which means we're going to still be looking for at least 6 more for 2025. And Running Wild for 2025. Oh, good Lord. Another one, I've lost my mind. We have 17 that are currently slated for Running Wild for 2025. Now, obviously, until we are done the slate for 2024, we're not going to dive into 2025. Like, it doesn't make any sense. We actually we've actually just brought on board 2 more editors who are, I think, are going to be amazing with our team. And we're checking out 3 more. So the more editors we have on board who have time to work on different titles, then the more will be made available faster. Now that said, even with that, I'm still going to limit the total number available per year per imprint to 15, because there's so much work involved after the editing process, and we really, really need to up our game. I think we're amazing in terms of cover design. I think we're amazing in terms of like back jacket copy. We've got really decent log lines, right? All that kind of thing. But marketing and publicity and really spreading the word among the general fabulous, new word. Um, general populace, spreading the word about our phenomenal stories to uh, pre-existing fans, and getting the word out to like bookstores and libraries, we can really, really do a lot better. And we are heavily working on that now. I mean, like, I am personally right now sending out notes to independent booksellers, and based on the books that they've already purchased from us in previous years, I'm letting them know, like, hey, thank you so much for buying our books, these books in the past. Here are ones that, based on your previous purchase history, I think you might find really interesting. And then making other like offers to send them advanced review copies, stuff like that. And we're also currently running a campaign, so anybody watching this, feel free to go ahead and shoot me an email at I think it's Lisa at runningwildpress.com, or L Kastner at runningwildpress.com. Anyway, either one, or Lara, Lara, at runningwildpress.com. But we're currently running a program where if you sign up for our newsletter, then we will give you an advanced review copy of any title that you find interesting, a digital advanced review copy from our 2023 catalogs. And to up that game, if you give us 5 names of people to make the same offer, and those 5 sign up. So you could give more than 5, right? But basically 5 people that you refer to us, you'll get another advanced review copy. So that's a big deal. That means you're going to get your hands on some titles that no one has seen except for potentially some reviewers. And I got to tell you, so far, the reviews that we've gotten for the titles in 2023, I mean, they've been stellar. They've been absolutely amazing. So, if I were you guys, I'd be really excited about this offer. Just saying. Not that I'm biased or anything. So, Holly, I just over answered your question, but that's the complete answer. Um, Caroline says, "Poor thing is right. Me too. I miss those hitting those keys. Honestly, seriously, I still remember when we had typing class in middle school, and for Christmas, the special treat was you were given this, like, do like 20 spaces and then 2 X's, and then carriage return. I wonder how many people here actually remember the term carriage return." And then do another 15 spaces, and then like 5 X's and O and 3 X's or whatever, right? And then carriage return. And then the treat would be, at the end, it was like an image of Santa or an image of like a reindeer. Like, that was like so fun. Like, it was ridiculously fun. And then at the end, I don't know if anyone else had this too, at the end of the class, like how you graduated from typing school. And maybe it was just where I grew up. Like, they were afraid we wouldn't get into college or something. So it was like, okay, everybody has to learn how to type, because we didn't have computers back then. Like, I still remember in high school, our computer class, he literally had us sit in front of the computers. We weren't allowed to turn them on. We weren't allowed to actually touch them. But he would have us read the manuals. Like, no joke. That was our computer class. And like, we would learn different like computer language, and we would hand write out the answers to different problems for that computer language, but we weren't allowed to actually test it out, because he was afraid we were going to break the computers. We were the first class to have these computers, right? So the last day, we all complained so badly or so like vigorously. He finally gave in and said, "Okay, fine. Here, try this, code and see what happens." And it was just like a never-ending code where it was like, "Thank you, thank 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 you" on the screen. It was absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, did you did you have anything like that, Ben, in school?
No, no, I was before you even. So we the biggest decision was to take typing or not, and I didn't.
You
So,
didn't take typing?
no.
Oh my God, and you somehow have survived.
Yeah, I had to pass a typing test in the Coast Guard with 100 words in 5 minutes. I think so. That's 20 words a minute.
That's nothing.
Yeah,
Oh, please tell
when
me
I
you
looked
passed.
up when I looked up and saw that they were all caps because the caps lock was on, I didn't notice. I actually did 200 in 5 minutes because I had to start over.
Ah, oh my
But
God.
I passed.
Nice. Woo. Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Holly Rose says, "So why did typewriters require two spaces and computers not?" Do you know, Ben?
I do know.
Oh, go for it, man.
On the typewriter, the width of the letters was basically the same. So your capital I or your I was pretty close to like your W, your wide letters.
Mm,
So when you hit the period and in one space, it looked too close. Again, the optical, the perception of the optics.
mhm,
So they required two because the letters needed to be spaced out a little bit more because their width.
mhm.
Look that up.
Nice. Wow, that was thorough. Good
Because
job,
remember
man.
the arm that came up, they were all the same size. So the letters were on that arm and they were basically the same size as well because you only
Mm,
had so much room on the clacker part. You know, the
nice.
technical term, the clacker part.
Oh yeah. I mean, everyone knows that technical term.
Of course, that was before I think it just stayed with the electric. Remember we mentioned Smith Corona and the little ball that you could change out the font
Mm,
with the ball.
I
But
I mean, I'm aware of that, but I never did it. So,
yeah, you could do cursive. It had a cursive font. I
ooh,
know.
fancy.
But don't
Caroline
turn that
remembers
into a class. If you're if you're in college, don't use that one.
don't use that one. Oh no, yeah, they
Yeah.
would have a fit. It
Yeah.
was
Why'd you
like,
do
no
this in
one can
cursive?
read this. Yeah. Caroline remembers Smith Corona. She made sure to comment on it. So, Kelly Jean says, "Have all the submissions for short story novella anthology been notified?" For the novella anthology for next year, for 2024, yes. They've all been notified. We're currently in the midst of editing those novellas. I'll be honest, most likely as soon as I'm done that, I have about four more that I need to go through, like a first pass. But as soon as we're done fully editing all of those novellas, I'm probably going to dive right back into reviewing the latest submissions and then preparing for the 2025 novella anthologies. So, how about you, Ben? Where are you with the short stories?
We for anthology number 7 just got sent over to production not too long ago. So there are about oh I think it's 49, but some of those may be Rise. So for Running
Mhm.
Wild, it's around 40 that need to be selected. So, and I think the beginning dates for those started last July 2022. So if you submitted after July 2022, they haven't been selected yet, but they're about to.
Mm.
Before July 2022, those were notified, and because that was anthology number 7. So anthology number 8 is being selected now, but no
Wow,
one has been notified yet.
understood. Wow, so you're already going for it for the next round. That's great.
Yeah, that would be the October 24 would be number 8.
Mm. Wow.
Give or take.
Excellent.
Give or take. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I jumped ahead, but Kelly Jean says that she submitted in August, so that would be in the running for Anthology 8.
mm, got it. Thank you for that. Understood. Caroline says everyone has lost their minds. Lisa, lost their minds. Lisa, at least if you are a writer. Well, that's true. We have all absolutely lost our minds. I mean, that's probably why we're all writers. Ben, haven't heard from you on Terror. Are you on board for editing it for 2024? This is from Caroline.
Capital terror must mean her manuscript. I thought it was just terrorized.
No.
But
Well, you're always on board for being terrorized, so.
it's true. But Caroline, you have bubbled up to number 3, the third one in the pile. And I've started number 1, so you're about two and a half out. And then there's a novel called Cure 2 that is about 3.5 out, right behind you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then so you're getting closer and closer and closer. I would shoot for. I hate giving a date because I never make the deadlines, but
that's all right.
The middle of February would be another month. Yeah, because you have a collection of short stories ahead of you, and they go a little easier because you don't have to keep track of the plot and make sure that the sequences are good. Because the short stories are just short stories. It's just a collection. And actually, I've read some of these already because one was added to anthology number 7.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking good for you to show up in February, Caroline.
Nice.
No, I mean it. Awesome. No, really.
You're like, no, seriously. I'm almost
really,
there.
No, I mean it this time. Yeah.
Caroline says,
the novel I just started, I told him, yeah, it'll be July. And I'm not ahead. I'm way behind.
That's not, well, I mean, you had a lot of like shifting with the short story collections or anthologies. Yeah. So yeah.
And the 2 novels I had last summer, they took some editing, rearranging, and one is still pending. But one we turned into an anthropological find.
Oh, fun!
Made it the dystopian novel in the future. Looks like we came across the scrolls.
Ah, very cool. That sounds like a blast, actually. Caroline says, did either of you have a digital demote or demote? Not sure of the spelling, but one of the first personal word processors, computers. It was like $7,000. No. Nope. Nope.
You can pronounce it any way you want to. The $7,000 tells me I didn't have it.
Yeah, me too.
No matter what it was. If it was that much, I didn't have it.
Now, mind you, my father was fascinated with the idea of computers. So he had a computer before I did, and he actually taught himself coding. And, and I learned more from computers from my father, who, by the way, was a radio personality. So the fact that he had such a fascination with anything around, technology was actually pretty kind of cool. But that was like a huge investment. Like he was so proud of that investment that I knew, I would never. I had so many notebooks, like there was no way. I don't think I actually got my first computer until, I was going to say college. Actually, that might be true. I don't think I got my first computer until college. So and then you answered Kelly Jean. Caroline says, can I still send something in for number 8, Ben?
Of course. Yeah, it's still, like I say, I haven't started looking at them, so I won't even look at the date. But usually it's in the past, I'll say, we have selected short stories in March, April, May timeframe. to work on them in the summer and get them ready, but in the fall for a year for the next to be published in a year after that.
Mm.
So you're good. To answer your question, yeah, sure.
Caroline says, "Oh, I meant decimate. I forgot the C in there." Yep, still the answer is nope.
$7,000 answered it.
Yeah, that was crazy money then. I mean, that's crazy money now for a computer. So, nope. Absolutely not. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything interesting. I've been working on I'm still working on revising our business plan. So that's really been my focus for like the last, I don't know, 2 weeks. It's probably going to take me at least another 2, maybe 3 weeks to finish that out. And as I mentioned, I have to finish revising or going over all of the novellas. Um, Actually, we have a novel that I'll remain nameless. That we were looking at who we wanted to have as the editor for it. And it's gorgeously written. I mean, seriously, this woman has such amazing talent. And the challenge with it was really the structure, because the way it's currently structured, it reads like it's a third person close single person narrative, right? So it's all from the perspective of one character. But then you get deeper into the story, and now you're in a different perspective, a completely different character's point of view. So I asked her, well, what do you want this to be? Do you want this to be a dual narrative, or do you want this to be a single narrative? And what's interesting is there's a perception in some writing circles that if you're going to do a single narrative, there's only one way that you can demonstrate another character's point of view, and that's through dialogue, right? And I thought we had a really good discussion about, well, really, there are tons of different ways. Even if you're using third person close, you can not only demonstrate, but you can bring forward and actually generate a lot more tension. If you have your primary character observing the behaviors of that secondary character and questioning, like, why is he behaving this way, or why is she behaving that way, right? And like you can have them discover, letters. You can have them, I mean, yes, it can be through dialogue, but even think about, how do you discover things in your own day to day, right? I'd say maybe, I don't know, 50 to 80%. I'd say 50% of what you learn is not through dialogue. It's not from talking to other people, right? You're finding out about things from doing, reading the newspaper, and again, observation, and going places and experiencing things yourself. So the same would be true for your characters. So you really do have, and you actually have more of a wellspring of having different characters discover things, because you're writing it in third person close, or you could even have it more from a third person omniscient point of view. And that, again, it's not like you're in your own head figuring stuff out. You're out there learning stuff along with your characters. So, you can actually do a lot with it. Does that mean if you've got a dual narrative that changing it to a single point of view won't be a lot of work? Oh, heck no. It means it's going to be a lot of work, right? But, again, really be aware of all the great different uh, crafts, all the great methods that are available to you when you are writing a story. So, I don't know, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I think even there's some things that you can omit
Mm,
or not include, even in the description, but leave it up to the reader to figure out what's happening and why certain actions are taking place. And those actions are indicative of a personality or a situation or a response to a situation, that you don't necessarily have to have that other character tell you this is what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Just
Mhm.
let the description explain it. I was as Lisa was talking there. I remembered uh, Cervantes and Don Quixote.
Mm.
The the girl, the one, the fantasy girl that Don Quixote was pursuing was salting pork. And if you were salting pork in Spain at that time, it was probably because you didn't want people to know that you were Jewish or Arab or
Oh.
Muslim. And so it's very subtle, but you leave that up to your reader to say, oh, that's what's going on at that period. Of course, we've got that 600 years gap that we don't really remember what was going on, and so we read it for other reasons. But that's a very nice touch to have it in there to make the reader think about, well, why is she doing that?
Mhm.
And because she's assimilating the Christianity by getting ready to eat pork, which was a protective measure because of the persecution of the Jews and the Muslims in after Spain became Catholic.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was so just that description of it, just the actions that they're doing. Let the reader figure out why. You may come up with 2 or 3 interpretations from your readers, but I say that's okay. That
Mhm.
just broadens your reader base. If you want all your readers to think the same thing, then you're missing some readers that aren't thinking the same thing. So leave it open; they'll
I
appreciate it.
That's a great, I mean, and honestly, as you drive forward within the narrative and you have additional like bits of inferences, right, or and references, the reader, their interpretation will hone in more on what your intention was. Like you know, and sometimes that can be the most like some of my absolute favorite stories have been written in that way. So, it's interesting that you reference that though. Like, my husband and I literally just saw Babylon, the movie, and it's a brilliant film, very layered, told really from multiple points of view. I'd say the primary points of view that you think of, from the period of the beginning of Hollywood, right, all the way back to before there were talkies. So that transition from when films were silent films and then they moved into talkies, right? But it ended like 4 times. And we actually ended up like, so, because you go to the movies and you go out to dinner after or before, like, depending on the hour that you hit the film. And we were basically, I mean, talking about like all of the different analogies that were in the film, and how it represents different aspects of our society today and what's occurring now with how technology is really just making evolving, if for lack of a better term, entertainment, and how we're actually getting information even beyond just simple entertainment, blah blah blah. Anyway, but we both commented like, the film could have ended here and everybody would have known what had happened. Like, it just really felt like some of the characters' storylines, it was as if they wanted to make sure they closed everything out, right? And we were both like, but you didn't need to. Like, we would have figured out this guy was gonna, I won't give any spoilers, but like he was gonna do what he was gonna do, right? You didn't need to, have this like big dramatic ending to really round out all of the in it some of all of the different storylines. You could have ended it like a half hour earlier, and honestly, it would have resonated for a lot of viewers so much more, because they would have sat there and said, "Oh my gosh, this was brilliant because blah, blah, blah," right? Again, because he had done such a gorgeous job of setting things up for every single character, that if it would have ended like, again, like a half hour earlier, you would have sat there and said, "Wow, that was brilliant." And I'm pretty sure this is what happened, and you would have really had people talking about the movie, and it's the same. It's the same for any story. It's not just film. The same is true for any kind of novel, any kind of short story, any kind of novella. Story, story, story. Really let your reader trust your reader. Let them use their brains. They will love you for it. So,
Be better off for it.
yeah, absolutely. And you might get some really cool responses where people are like, "Oh my gosh, have you ever thought about doing X or Y?" And then you're like, "Oh, you know what? I think I need to do that." So Tim Shoemaker says, "Been enjoying the Ask Us Anything, especially hearing from that Ben fella. I know, isn't he cool?"
Yeah. I was tracking Tim's trip up through New Mexico. He was in Carlsbad, then Lincoln County, and then Shiprock, and he didn't stop by the house at all.
What?
Next thing I know,
Uh,
he was north in the snow.
well, that's it, Tim. You're disowned. I mean, just making sure you understand that.
I would have given you a tortilla or something.
I'm sure you got a lot of stuff in your house other than tortillas.
Tortillas are
Just to,
pretty good though.
they are pretty good. Hey, maybe I'll show up.
But Tim, I am circling back to you. You're still on the hook. You're not off the hook yet. We've got the NFG coming back to you.
I
NFG
still
is short for the title of his book
well,
because it's Thursday at 6:30.
I'm wondering still if we're gonna. I love that title. We absolutely have to use it. So, uh, yeah, and it is so it's we're I can't believe it that we only have a little over 20 minutes left, guys. So if you are watching us and it's yet another Run Wild with Us, Ask Us Anything, then you will want to go ahead and pop your questions into the comments section of whatever format you are watching us, and we will be sure to repeat said question and we'll both answer it. If you are watching this and it is not Thursday between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time or 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, guys, it's not a big deal. Go ahead, put your comments or questions into the comments section. We read it throughout the week and we will then be sure to answer said question as long as it's not, I don't know, obscene or ridiculous. I don't know. Actually, we kind of love the
We'll
ridiculous
jump all
ones
over
too.
those.
Oh yeah, those can be kind of the most fun. But anyway, and we'll be sure to answer them in the subsequent week. And so yeah, so you guys have got us. It can be anything around whatever you most want. Actually, so this is kind of fun. Caroline asks, "Hey Ben and Lisa," she mentioned you first, so it means it's going to be about you first. Um, you get my homemade cod.
It's alphabetical.
It No, I don't think that's it. You get my homemade cod, clam, and corn chowder when you come here. Ooh, that sounds good.
I'll bring tortillas.
Yeah, he'll bring tortillas. I'm not known for making anything, but not that I don't cook, but
I'm not
I'm.
going to cook them. I'm going to pick them up on the way out.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I'm good at takeout. I'm amazing at finding good restaurants. So that's my true talent. I actually have a slice of carrot cake waiting for me in the fridge.
For supper.
Yeah, like my favorite desserts are coconut cake and carrot cake. And I have it's like a thing for me right now. And I don't know why I never got into red velvet. It always just the thought that that's really just chocolate cake that's been dyed red just makes me not want it.
And because coconut and carrots, you got your fruits and vegetables.
Clearly, I mean, so I can pretend I'm healthy, uh, while in reality I'm not even
Yeah.
close. So Ben, what are your favorites? Do you have any favorites?
No. I only eat one meal a day, so it really doesn't matter what it is.
Oh yeah.
If you're only eating one meal a day, it could be a cardboard sandwich. This is the best cardboard sandwich ever.
Well, that's true. Yeah, admittedly, I only read. I only read. That's fabulous. I only eat. I eat a protein shake, and one meal a day. That's all I typically have.
And it's carrot cake.
And well, I'll somehow I might manage to kind of condense the carrot cake in, unless it's like a big piece of cake. Then yeah, that's the meal. If it's a little piece, I'll like tag it on to whatever I'm having. But yeah.
Yeah.
So what got you into having just one meal a day?
It was you got to go back to my Coast Guard days when we didn't have in the Army. If you go far enough back to my Army days, we would run PT in the mornings
Hmm.
and every mornings. But in the Coast Guard, we didn't do it. So the Coast Guard said, well, at lunchtime, if you go work out at lunch, you can have an hour and a half. If you don't work out at lunch, you only get a half an hour. So I did the math. I said, well, I think I'll start playing basketball at lunch. And then, of course, you skip lunch when you do that, unless you are some people who bring their lunch and eat at their desk after they worked out. But that wasn't me. So it just started. It conditioned the workout conditioned my body not to need lunch. And then it was the 4 o'clock rule, so I would eat when I got home.
Mm.
And then it turned into eat when you get home, whenever it is. It could be late or it could be early. It's time to eat when you get home. Your body says, "Okay, we're home."
Yay! That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's been a long time. That's back in the 80s,
Wow.
1980s. Remember the 1980s? Anyone?
Kind of. Eh.
Uh, there
Ca-
weren't. I didn't have a typewriter then either.
no, no. Caroline says, "Hey Lisa, you and me too. I cook, don't eat. I mean, I cook too, but I'm cooking because I only eat one actual meal again, other than the protein shake per day. Um, like it's usually yeah, like whatever I'm cooking, it's got to be flavorful. Like it's got to be worth it, you know. And but I'm not big on like deep fried foods. I'm not big on. I don't eat cheese. I don't eat anything milk based just because my stomach's like ah. Um, and I do try to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Like my protein shake actually includes um like a banana and maybe some another kind of fruit that's frozen, and then I put it in a blender so it's more like a ice cream, so it's like a treat instead of just some protein powder. So and Caroline, your timing's perfect asking what's in the protein shake.
Uh,
Yeah, frozen banana, usually like maybe a half of an apple, the protein powder, a little bit of soy milk, a bunch of ice, and then I blend it until it's thick, usually somewhere between a shake and ice cream thickness. And then I actually eat it with a spoon. So, yeah. Oh, you eat the same thing? Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I started doing it to manage my weight because I just found it was so much easier because I work out at least 5 days a week. Meaning like I do a hits program and then I go for like a 2.5 mile walk. And I just found for me to stay in shape, it was just so much easier to just have that protein shake that I just described, and then having like one real meal a day. Um, yeah. So, although I do have lattes, so it's not like I'm not getting calories in somewhere. But
they're hazelnuts, so they're back to
oh, no, I don't do that. I don't do the hazelnut or the almond, all those super fancy. It's just basically soy milk and espresso. That's my. My or like flat whites. I love a really good flat white. My husband introduced me to flat whites, which is an Australian variation on a latte. And if it's done right, it is like wow, like off the charts. But it's kind of hard to find a really good flat white in the States. So I don't know. Or oh, what's it called? Not an English fog, but something like that, which is basically um oh, London fog. Sorry, my husband just let me know. The London fog. And that one, it's like a tea latte, which again is like it's that one, it's so good. It's whatever milk variation you want. Usually it's English breakfast tea and a little bit of honey. And you could well, or at least I could drink that for like days, which is what would explain why sometimes my headaches that I get on a pretty regular basis are increased because I'm probably on such a major caffeine downer that my body's like, ah, what are you doing to me? So anyway, blah blah blah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that was really interesting that came up this week from a publishing or an editing perspective. Um, I know we've got some of our titles are actually going to be coming out on some of the better known, with some of the better known reviewer companies, and which is fantastic. And that the reviews are pretty amazing. So that's really awesome. I also had the opportunity to sit in on the a strat planning meeting with Lachi, who's one of our amazing authors with Rise. Her book comes out in October of this year. It's called Death Tango. Again, killer story. You guys are going to love it. And Lachi is actually professionally, she is an artist. She's actually on the Grammy board for New York, believe it or not, and she is blind, and she does talks worldwide in terms with like keynote speaking engagements around I hate the term disabled, but like advocacy talks. She is so stellar, she is so amazing, and I can't wait for you guys to read her novel. And I believe we actually purchased, I believe it's actually a trilogy. So I, you really need to look forward to it. I mean, I can't wait for us to get this in front of you guys. You're absolutely going to adore it. So I'm like, and I'm like, what was there anything else that was like, wow? Uh, oh, I did get my hand slapped by I have a beta reader who read Cure 2, which I'm tentatively calling The Calling, or naming it The Calling. But so Ben is actually my editor, so he can tell me if that sucks or not when he goes and reads it.
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out what the new title will be if he's like, this sucks. Um, but my beta reader was like,
That sounds just like me.
it, yeah, no, not really. Well, actually, nah, we've been working together too long. Yeah, you would totally do that. And I would completely be all over it. Like, okay, yeah, sure. So, but anyway, I got my hand slapped to change the ending. So I did. I rewrote the whole ending. And so hopefully it'll make more readers will be happy about it. And I would love suggestions in terms of authors to provide blurbs. I have thoughts on who I'd love to put it in front of, but if you guys have any suggestions in terms of who you think might be kind of cool to read it, then that would be awesome. I'd love it. Holly Rose says, Lisa, I've heard you and others talk about how much you do and how you never slow down. You do all that with headaches? Power to you. I get frequent headaches and sometimes it's hard to push through. not publishing related, but how do you push through? Oh, wow, that's a great question. So I actually I get headaches for lots of reasons. Like, and you can tell what the different ones are based on where they start and like where they lead to in your body. Some for me, like like we were just talking about, like the fact that we only really eat one meal a day. Sometimes it's because of that, right? Like your body's like, I'm tired of telling you that I'm starving, so you need to get off your hiney and go ingest something that has some kind of calories in it. Sometimes it's dehydration. And so, just getting a decent amount of water in will help get rid of it. Sometimes it's because of doing exactly what we've been describing. I mean, just making sure we're making things happen, right? Being in front of the computer so frequently. There are times that, I mean, I can't see. Like I have been reading on a computer for so long that I like, how you can make the screen bigger so that like the typeface is bigger? I get to a point where it's probably the equivalent of like a 15-point font typeface, and my eyes are still kind of like a little blurry. That's when I know either A, I need new glasses, or B, I need to get off the computer because I have been working too long. And my only solution for that is, in all honesty, it's to get off the computer, go take a couple of Advil, drink some water, and lay down for a little while. Um, and sometimes it's because, like, I've been working so long that I need to take a nap. And believe it or not, taking the nap, oftentimes, as long as I've taken like a couple of ibuprofen beforehand, it'll get rid of that headache, which is amazing. How about Ben? Do you get headaches a lot?
No, I just give them because I know you
Nice.
have one special place in your head designated for Ben.
It's
The
even
Ben headache.
tattooed right there. There's a B for Ben.
I knew it.
Actually, I have to tell the story. So for a long time, I edited both all the short story anthologies and the novella anthologies. And every once in a while, I'd go, and I have this bad habit, which I probably should not admit to on a live stream because now it's recorded forever. And yeah, which is also why we now have acquisition editors, just so you guys know. I have a bad habit that if it's a story that I can tell an author's worked really hard on and it's not quite there, like it still needs a lot of work, but I know what it can become. Like I can see what a fantastic story it could be. I'll accept it, right? And this was before we had brought in Ben and Cody and Peter as acquisition editors. So that means also, though, that's how we end up with short story and novella anthologies that are 2 books in a single year because I'll accept so many stories that I see a lot of potential in, right? Anyway, so I used to reach out to Ben and I'd ask him, "Can you look at this and tell me if what do you think about it?" Right? And again, this was before we had uh, these guys as acquisition editors. And it was funny because I'd say 9 times out of 10, Ben's gut analysis of the story was the same as mine. Like, well, it's got a lot of potential, so you just, really kind of think about whether this is something that you want to work on because you may end up working on it for a while, right? And I'd say most of the time, when he came back and said that, if I hadn't accepted it already, that was my red flag. Like, okay, I probably don't want to accept it, because another red flag for most editors is if you can tell this has been edited a lot. I mean, like, it's clear that there's just a lot of different signs in stories that tell you that a piece has been reworked quite significantly. that is also oftentimes a red flag as to whether you want to work on it or not, because sometimes what that means is, from this editor's not editor, from the author's perspective, they don't want to work on it anymore. As far as they're concerned, they've sent it to you, it is done, you should just accept it, right? And in today's market, a lot of people now are hiring third-party editors to work on their pieces and then submitting it to different publications. Again, with the thought that, well, this third-party editor will take my piece to the next level, and that means I won't actually need to have any editing done. So for some publications, they're when they can tell, again, that this has been clearly edited pretty heavily, then they'll just reject it, right? We will actually tend to go back to the author and ask them leading questions like, are you open to being edited? Or like, do you have a synopsis of the story, especially if it's a full length story or a novella, because that'll help us to be able to see what the narrative thread is, the overarching narrative thread is. And again, we'll ask you, are you open to being edited? So I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but that just sort of proves how I trust Ben when it comes to stuff like this. Like, is this something that we should accept or not? Because I know we have very similar editing styles and we have very similar approaches when it comes to works that they have a lot of potential, and we can probably, as long as the author is open to working with us, we know we can make it into something phenomenal. It's that delta, right? It's that question as of whether the author is open to really actually making the revisions. So anyway, I don't know. Ben, what do you think? I just talked for far too long.
And sometimes it's to bounce it off Peter, who has a much different style and a much different eye, that
Hmm.
is good for Running Wild Press to have those conversations with the three of us, or if Cody's in, the four of us, or some like Joelle sets in, and so there, it's not just one person making the decision, which is I, I think different from what you'll come across in other publishers. Because we're open to, hey, can we make it work? Can this work? And and Lisa and I are very similar to our approach, and our yes, sure.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
uh, Peter's a little bit more, what do you say, technical maybe, and literary. Yeah, I would say literary for sure,
Hmm.
and a great judge of good writing,
Oh,
because
100%.
he gets drawn in with good writing, and that's, if he says it's good writing, we go with it. Okay, Peter said.
Yep, and especially if it's literary, I always go to Peter. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
that I don't love Ben to look over it, but like again, in our early days, I mean, that's how Ben and Peter became acquisition editors, because I would just find myself going to them, like they were already editors for us, and I would just find myself going to them and asking them like, what do you think about this and what do you think about that, and especially if it was more of a literary piece, I would go to Peter and ask him for, his guidance and his thoughts. And yeah, I mean, and to Ben's point, I mean, we do tend to we are getting more selective because we kind of have to. I mean, I already walked you through our 2023, 2024, 2025, and part of 2026, right? And we're not a big, well, not yet. Like, we're not a big crew. That said, so because of all that, we do have to be a little bit more selective. But anyway, um, but yeah, we love finding fantastic stories that aren't quite there yet, and really helping that author find their voice and find their narrative style. It's there's nothing like it. It's just a blast. So, and with that, I think we're at the end of the hour, or the top of the hour. And I want to thank Ben yet again for joining us. And thank all of you amazing people for asking, as always, such phenomenal questions. Thank again, you guys, you rock it. We love you all, and we can't wait to see you next week. So, with that, I will thank you guys again and have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon.
Have a good night.
Bye.
We'll see you next week.